Different day, different location, different surface, different stadium, different teams on the field this time around, and completely different result. The Georgia Bulldogs are the SEC champions. They are going to the college football playoff. They defeated the Auburn Tigers 28-7 just a few weeks after falling to the Auburn Tigers. Of course, that game in Jordan-Hare Stadium, 40-17. So these were the differences. Kirby Smart actually just said it right after the game. He talked about poise, and he talked about physicality being the difference. I thought that Auburn would win the game, even though I tussled with this one, because the rematch is always difficult for the first team to win again because they know what they did successfully the first time. So they're thinking, especially in a dominant performance, what do we do differently? We did what we wanted to do, so why change the game plan? Versus the team that lost, they can fix all the issues. These two teams are very evenly matched, but Georgia, after a rough start and after the two teams played on even ground for the first half, dominated much like Auburn did the first time around at home. Okay, Georgia came out the first game on the Plains and took it down the field 70-some yards for the touchdown and led 7-0. In this rematch, Auburn took it right down the field on the first drive of the game, 70-some yards for the touchdown. Scripted plays, Jarrett Stidham doing what he does best. They got Eli Stove involved in the action, knowing that Carrion Johnson would be banged up in this one coming in, even though Johnson was on the field and got more carries than any of the running backs for the Auburn Tigers. He gave it a really good go, but he definitely was not the same back. So they went other directions, did the Auburn Tigers, and successfully on the first drive. Eli Stove was a major portion of this game plan. Early in the game, he had 45 yards receiving and rushing. Ryan Davis was difficult for Georgia to deal with the first few drives of the game as well. He had 7 catches for 65 yards. Auburn led it 7-0 after the Stidham touchdown pass, and Jarrett Stidham's numbers did not look good, but that wasn't his fault. He played extremely well, and over the first few drives of the game, he had time, and when he didn't have time, he burned the Georgia defense, converting with his legs. He's an exceptional quarterback, but just 14 of 31 on this day for $145, and the touchdown pass that made it 7-0. All right, then after that, Georgia got the football and was stuffed its first few drives. But we saw it on one of the first plays of the game in which Nick Chubb took the toss sweep. And it was noted during the broadcast that during the first meeting that Georgia didn't run one of its bread and butter plays the entire game at Auburn, the toss sweep. And definitely they promised us that they would utilize the toss sweep, and Nick Chubb was successful on a few of those plays, in particular 13 carries for 77 yards. Jake Fromm, different quarterback in this game. When the plays were scripted and he had time the first drive, as we noted against Auburn in the first meeting, he had 3 really sharp throws and led that touchdown drive. The rest of the game, the Auburn defensive line, it's just strange how that works. When the lines play a certain way, it dictates the rest of the game. We give the accolades and the attention to the skilled players, and they sure deserve it. And obviously, you need those explosive type players at the running back and the skill positions to do their jobs and to change games. But it starts up front. And Jake Fromm in this game had time to throw after the first drive in the first meeting. The Auburn defensive front, and certainly Jeff Holland, controlled that game. Holland from the outside, harassing Fromm all night, and the inside defensive tackles controlling the run game. Jake Fromm made a couple tremendous throws, showing his NFL arm to the outside on the out routes, threw it across the field on a dime like a dart. He's got an exceptional arm, and he played loose, and they gave him a little bit more to play with in this one. He didn't play so tight, and the game plan was a little bit more diversified this time around, but they definitely made sure that they could neutralize the Auburn defensive dominance up front by getting the ball out of Jake Fromm's hands quickly. He responded with a 6 of 22 day. He missed his last 2 passes that didn't matter. 16 of 20 to start the day for $183. He hit Isaac Nada on the touchdown that tied it 7-7. After that, a couple of plays that I noted here. Sonne Michelle, he had a total of 77 yards rushing and receiving. They threw the swing pass out to him when it was a 10-7 game on the left side that he broke for 32 yards. He was just so fast to split a couple defenders, break some tackles, and set up the Georgia TD on that one. That made it a 13-7 game with a field goal. They got the later touchdown that was set up by the RPO play. Nifty little play, sucked in the defense. And Fromm went downfield to Mecole Hardman for 34 yards on that one that led to the touchdown that made it 21-7. Of course, so when it was still a very close game, just after halftime, Hawkins Muckle blocked the field goal as Auburn didn't have the timing on the field goal quite right. Daniel Carlson, one of the very best in college football, a bit hesitant on the kick. Georgia got the push up front, but it was Muckle who blocked it to keep Georgia off the board on that particular play. They kept it a 10-7 game. At that point, would have been 10-10. And then also a big play in this game. Consider what we were talking about early in the segment here, that Georgia got off to a slow start offensively. Auburn a quick start offensively with the touchdown. And then on their second or third series, they drove it all the way back down the field. They were in the red zone, and Davin Bellamy made a huge play in which this could have been a 14-0 Auburn game. He had the strip sack on Jarrett Stidham, and after that, it was Georgia's game from there. All right, have to wonder about Carrion Johnson. He had 13 carries for 44 yards. He wasn't quite the same. And with Cam Petway on the shelf for most of the season during the second half of the campaign, Auburn really could not mount a running game in this one against the Georgia Bulldogs. All right, some dates to remember here. It's 2017. This is the first time that the SEC Eastern Division has won the title game since way back in 2008. And that was, of course, Urban Meyer and the Florida Gators in their first of back-to-back games against the Alabama Crimson Tide. The Tide took it in 2009, and it's been the SEC Western Division ever since. Georgia claims it back for the East, first time since 2008. It's Georgia's first SEC title since 2005 with Mark Richt at the helm. They went to the Sugar Bowl and took on, I believe, West Virginia that year. And, of course, they could have erased all that suffering in 2012. They came that close with Aaron Murray at quarterback and Mark Richt on the sideline and lost to Alabama. I was hearing a number of times during the broadcast that this was Georgia's biggest game since 1980. Well, now they will play their biggest game since 1980, but in 2012, despite the different format, the BCS versus the college football playoff, they were in the same position. They were playing Alabama for a shot to go to the BCS National Championship game, and of course came up short 32-28 in that game. So Georgia in play after the SEC Championship game to play in its first national championship game possibly since 1980, when it was unofficial. Of course, it was a vote, and they knocked off Notre Dame behind Herschel Walker in that game. I'm trying to think of the final score. I believe it was 20-10, something in that range. All right, Georgia, just more physical. How can you explain it? Auburn dominated offensive line, defensive line. This time it was Georgia, just hungrier, more prepared, more poised, just couldn't wait to get back at Auburn and get that rematch. Maybe there was some distraction, possibly involving Gus Malzahn. He, of course, has ties to Arkansas. And considering the loss here in the SEC championship game and supposedly some strained relationships with the Auburn administration and the athletics department, maybe Gus Malzahn moves on to Arkansas and some little lesser expectations running that football program. So it'll be a good bowl game for the Auburn Tigers, but they fall to 10-3 on the season. And of course, Georgia moves on at 12-1. They should be one of the top three seeds, certainly with Clemson and Oklahoma. If the Tigers win the ACC, Oklahoma securely in, and we will wait to see whether it's Wisconsin, Ohio State, or Alabama, the Big Ten championship game kicking off in just a few minutes. Impressive showing by Kirby Smart, rallying this football team in just a few weeks to take on the rematch. Auburn could not quite complete the mission of defeating number one than what would be now number 6. 3 games against top 5 teams in the country. They almost got it done, but they fall just a little bit short. Georgia wins 28-7. Would love to hear from Georgia football fans. Auburn fans chime in, especially about Gus Malzahn's situation, and college football fans as well. You got to subscribe to my YouTube channel for the very best in college football coverage. That's what we talk 24/7, 365 each and every day. Provide you with college football content, analysis from myself, but also the best bloggers and broadcasters in the industry. And we're excited about a number of people joining us in the next several weeks. Can't wait to hear back from you, and we'll see you next time.